In this sermon series, I thought it was very crucial and important for us to walk through together simply how to fight our battles. How to fight our battles. We explained the first week just simply who our enemy is, who Satan is, how Satan attacks, ways that we can combat Satan and the enemy's schemes and the enemy's attacks. You can go back and hear all of these messages that you guys have missed on YouTube. Just search the Vibe Student Ministry. And again, we always have our message guides up for you guys available. That way you see everything that's on the screen. It's available for you to dive deeper into your relationship with the Lord with all the questions that we have. And then we kind of wrapped up before the storm happened this past week. We had a two-part conversation on lies, on the battle of lies. But tonight we start a 2 to 3 week conversation on the battle of idols. On the battle of idols. Now, you may not realize this. Maybe you don't understand this quite yet. I'm hoping that you do before you leave tonight, how important of a conversation this is. Because the thing about idols is a lot of times people don't even realize the idols that they have in their life. That's the truth. There's a lot of times that people don't even realize the type of idols that are taking place above Christ. And so we're going to talk about that for 2 or 3 weeks and talk about what are idols, what is idolatry. I'm going to challenge you as a person to dive into that yourself, whether you're a middle schooler, you're a high schooler, whether you're an adult, doesn't matter. I'm challenging all of us to walk through what are some idols. Like, do I have some in my own life? Do I have some things, some relationships, some whatever, fill in the blank, that has taken the place of Christ? Here's how we're going to define idolatry in this series. It's going to be a really simple definition. Idolatry is misplaced worship. That's what it is. Idolatry is simply misplaced worship. And so what is an idol? It's anything that takes place above God in our worship. And what do y'all hear me say all the time? It doesn't have to be a really bad thing to be an idol. It can actually be a great thing. It can be a thing that's not even a sinful thing. But when the thing is taking place above God in our worship, guess what it is? Now it's an idol. Now it's an idol. Idolatry is misplaced worship. That's what that is. I'm really excited about this conversation we're going to have about this, and I hope you hang in there with me tonight and you learn something, and I hope that you're convicted. I hope that you're challenged. I hope that you leave with the challenging of wanting to grow spiritually in your relationship with Christ. Because you hear me say it a lot. I really don't care if you're just 11 years old or 17 or 18. I'm still doing this. Like, every year I thought it was going to be my last year of being a student pastor. I keep finding myself, I'm still up here. You know, and I'm, like I always say, my 10th year doing this. It's my 10th year at the same church. And the reason that I like doing this and I love doing this is because I still believe in you guys. I still believe in that. I still believe that as crazy as some of you middle schoolers are, and you may drive me nuts sometimes, but I believe in you and I love you. And I know that God has a plan for you. And high schoolers, it's the same. I know a lot of you, and I know what God can do in your life if you will just allow Him to. So this is a very important conversation. It's a very important series that we're going to walk through just when it comes to idolatry. I'm going to ask y'all if you're ready, and I want you to shout out with me in just a minute. And if you are, we're going to dive right in. I'm going to give you a little history lesson before we jump in. But here's what I want you to do. If you're ready to jump in and you're ready to dive into this message tonight, I'm going to count to 3, and I just want you to shout out, preach, really loud, do it, have fun, yell it loud, but then don't let it linger for like 12 more seconds. And we have to wrap you back in. Yell the word preach real loud, have fun with that, but then vibe back with me, hang in with me when we jump back into the word. All right, so are y'all ready to do this? I'm going to count to 3, all right? And then shout out, preach real loud. Here we go. Are y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. Good job. Let's jump in. So before we actually move into 1 Kings, the passage that we're going to look at, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background. So there's this really incredible account in the Old Testament with this guy by the name of Elijah. And Elijah performs an insane miracle against 450 other prophets. It's literally one of these insane things like you would see in movies. 450 versus 1. is what Elijah would be going up against. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. We're going to read verse by verse through the account and through what happened in that situation. But before I do, I want to explain to you what was going on in that culture. Because in that culture, you had the Israelites, who many believed that Yahweh was God. Like Yahweh is God. There is no other God. There's not multiple gods. There's not little g gods. We know that y'all worship these kind of things over here and over there, but we worship Yahweh as God. He is God. But the problem they had was they were kind of mixing up some of that with all of this other idolatrous stuff. And so you had this religion that was following this false god by the name of Baal. This will be on your screen. I've got some information for those that are going to be taking notes. I want you to see this. There's going to be some facts about Baal that I want to talk about. And a few of those things are that Baal was a major Canaanite god. And this is very, very crucial. Don't miss this. The whole purpose of explaining this is so you get these three things right here. He was worshipped as the god of fertility, storms, and rain. So if you're the god of fertility, of storms, and of rain, you can do a lot of incredible stuff with that. And there was a lot of people that, unfortunately, they really believed he was God and that he was the God of fertility, storms, and rain. And so he was believed to control agricultural success, which made him central to the economy and survival of ancient cultures that depended on farming. Obviously, farming was a huge deal, and it still is today. So imagine if you were down on your luck and you knew that this false god was the God of storms and rain. And what do you need in a drought more than anything else? You need what? Water. Yes, thank you. That wasn't very loud, but at least you answered it right. You need water. And if you knew that this false god could offer the main thing that you needed, and you were down on your luck, it was very easy for them to tap into that and to move that direction and to worship Baal. And that's what they did. He was the god of fertility, of storms, and of rain. Now, I want you to understand why that they were struggling with worshiping Baal. This is as important as anything, and this will also be on your screen. Why did Israel struggle with Baal worship? And here it is. I'm explaining this to you kind of backwards, up front, and then we're going to just read and right through it, and I'm going to talk about it. The Canaanite culture around them worshiped Baal, making it tempting to conform. Now, I bolded and I underlined these parts that I really don't want you to miss. Notice the first three words I underlined. Culture around them. Culture around them. The Canaanite culture around them worshiped Baal. You understand that? The people all around them worshiped Baal. Because of that, look at the next one. It made it tempting to conform. I don't know if you get the picture here, but in 2025, the same thing's happening now. So by way of illustration, raise your hand if you can understand that right now, the culture around us makes it tempting to conform. Raise your hand if you would just be honest with that. The culture around us sometimes makes it kind of tempting to conform to that way. Boom. That's number one. Number two, Baal worship promised rain and prosperity. We talked about that, which would make it appealing in times of drought or struggle. Like I said a second ago, if you knew that this false god could offer you the thing that you needed so bad that would provide for your family, maybe provide for you financially, if you knew that this false god could offer that, it was very appealing. It was very appealing. Now, raise your hand for this one. How many of us know that right now that it's very tempting and around us the worldly culture offers things that are very appealing to us? Raise your hand if you believe that, if you agree with me on that. The culture offers things that are appealing. It was several thousand years ago when this was going on with these Israelites and with Baal worship. But I don't think it's much different now in 2025. And the third thing is Israel often tried, and this is a big one. This is like maybe, I don't want to say one of them is the most important, but this one's really, really high up there. Israel often tried to blend Baal worship with their worship of Yahweh. But God demanded full devotion. How many of us or maybe you don't have to tell on yourself, just telling somebody else. How many of y'all know people that try to blend worship to God with all these other worldly stuff? Come on, there we go. I got a lot of hands up on that one quick. That was a fast one. I think this is probably one of the biggest ones we struggle with. I do, because I do think there's a lot of people that really want to follow God, and they love God, and they believe in God, and they mean well, but it's so tempting to conform, and it's so appealing that eventually we lead ourselves to blending. I love God, I believe in God. I know He's awesome, I know He's great, but all of this over here is so appealing that I'm tempted to drift into it. And then we find ourselves drifting into it, and before we know it, we've blended. And that's not right. It's not right. God demands our full devotion to Him. Not 33%, not 67, not 98, 100%. Full devotion to Him. He's the only one worthy of our full devotion. He's the only one worthy of our full worship. God is, Yahweh is. And so when we blend anything other than Him and place it above Him, we've already messed up. We've already made idols in our life because we've misplaced our worship. That's why Israel struggled with Baal. Israel would do all of these things, and so you had this group of people that was following God, believed in God, and they were doing the things the right way. They weren't perfect, but they were obedient. And then you had a group of Israelites that was kind of drifting. They're kind of drifting and caught themselves in the middle. That's very important whenever we read this first part that I'm going to look at. So here we go. 1 Kings 18, 20 through 40, like 20 verses. So y'all get ready for this. So Ahab summoned all the Israelites, and he gathered the prophets at Mount Carmel. And then Elijah approached all the people, and he said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow Him. But if Baal, follow him." But the people didn't answer him a word. This particular passage, that line right there, if you want to go back to that just real quick, that line right here is the one I want us to really think about tonight as we walk through this message. Because I'm going to give you the story. I'm going to give you what happened in 20 through 40, but I want you to really resonate with this in your own life on this part. How long, Elijah said, how long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow Him. If it's Baal, follow him. And I think there's so many of us that can maybe relate to this, unfortunately, but we can be honest and say, man, I'm wavering between two. I'm wavering between two. And Elijah the prophet says, how long are you going to do that? Seriously, how long are you going to do that? If you want to follow the world and you don't think that Yahweh is God, just go follow the world. Don't 50% world, 50% God. Go 100% follow the world. Don't halfway in on one of them. Go all the way. If Yahweh is really not God, then don't be 50%. Go all the way the other direction. That sounds like some pretty crazy advice that you hear a preacher say, but that's what God's word says. That's what Elijah was saying. How long are you going to waver between two? If the Lord is God, follow him. If not, follow Baal. But the people didn't answer him a word. Verse 22, then Elijah said to the people, I am the only remaining prophet of the Lord. But Baal's prophets are 450 men. So let 2 bulls be given to us. They are to choose one bull for themselves, cut in pieces, and place it on the wood, but not light the fire. I will prepare the other bull, and I'll place it on the wood, but not light the fire. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God who answers with fire, he is God. All the people said, that's fine. Pause. Let me explain this to you. Elijah 1 verses 450. It's about to be a showdown between the prophets. And Elijah's team God. These other 450 are team Baal. And what he says is we're going to take 2 bulls. You get a bull, I get a bull. And we're going to do the same thing. And whichever one of these bulls is provided with fire, then that's the real God. That's the real God. If your bull has fire, boom, I'll bow down. Yahweh's not really God. Baal's really God. But if my bull has fire, then I'm proving that Yahweh is God. And so that's number one. That's what he does. Continuing on in verse 25. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, since you are so numerous, choose for yourselves one bull and prepare it first. and then call on the name of your God, but don't light the fire. So they took the bull that he gave them, prepared it, and called on the name of Baal, and from morning until noon. Now, morning back then started at sunrise. So it's a pretty long time. That's several hours that they're calling on their God to answer with fire, from morning until noon. And they would say, Baal, answer us. But there was no sound. No one answered. And then they danced around the altar that they had made. And then continuing on, verse 27, at noon, Elijah mocked them. And I love this part. Elijah starts talking trash. I mean, this is a dude that is 1 versus 450. Would y'all ever talk trash if it was 1 versus 450? None of us probably would. He is. He's talking trash. He's literally mocking these people, and it's 1 versus 450. Insane. And he says, shout loudly, for if he's God, maybe he's just thinking it over. Maybe he's wandered away. Maybe he's on the road. Perhaps he's just sleeping and he's going to wake up. And they shouted loudly, and they cut themselves with knives and spears, and according to their custom, until blood gushed all over them. Did y'all know y'all was going to get a message like this tonight? Everybody shout out amen with me. Amen. Good job. Verse 29. All afternoon they kept on raving until the offering of the evening sacrifice. But watch out. There was no sound. No one answered, and no one paid attention. No sound. No one answered. No one paid attention. And in verse 30, Elijah said to all the people, come near me. And so all the people approached him. And then he repaired the Lord's altar that had been torn down. And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, Israel will be your name. And he built an altar with the stones in the name of the Lord, and then he made a trench around the altar large enough to hold about 4 gallons. Large enough to hold about 4 gallons. What verse was that? Because I'm 32. All right, next slide, verse 33. Next, he arranged the wood, cut up the bull, and he placed it on the wood, and he said, fill 4 water pots with water and pour it on the offering to be burned and on the wood. Verse 34. Then he said, a second time. And then he said, all right, second time's done. Third time. Third time's done. And so the water ran all around the altar, and he even filled the trench with water. Now I got to pause and explain this to you. Have y'all ever played against somebody in something that you were way better than them at? Raise your hand. I like doing this raise your hand stuff lately, because even if you're falling asleep, you got to raise your hand. I have. There's some things I'm better at than some people. Maybe not much, but there's some. And when you're better at somebody than something, you want it to be what? You want it to be challenging. I like for it to be challenging. I don't like to beat somebody that's easy to beat. But if they are kind of easy to beat, and I know I can beat them, I want to make it challenging for me. I'm doing this right now with my kids. When Knox and Pierce want to play me in basketball, I know that I can, obviously, if I can't beat them as a 36-year-old and they're 8 and 6, there's something majorly wrong with me if I can't beat my 2 kids in basketball. So what I do to make it challenging is I play left-handed. And obviously, I don't go dunk on them every single time. This is not a 10-foot goal, and I'm not 18 anymore. This is a 8-foot goal, and I want to make it challenging. I want to make it still fun for me, not super easy. So I'll play left-handed, and I'll only shoot far back, and I won't block all their shots. But if you've ever been in situations when you're kind of better at somebody than something, you would sometimes give them a head start, or you'd make it more challenging for them. This is what Elijah's doing. He's already talking trash. He's talking mess to them, saying, hey, where's your false god at? I mean, maybe he's sleeping. I don't see him anywhere. He hasn't done anything. And this has been hours of you guys, and you guys are getting so weird about this that you're even starting to slash yourself with spears, and blood is gushing all over the place, and still nothing. You guys follow a really good false god. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna up the stage a little bit. I'm gonna make this even easier on you guys, and I'm gonna fill my area with a ton of water, because I'm gonna ask you all a very simple question. What's one thing that makes fire really hard to take place of? Say it again and say it like you really know the answer. What's one thing that can put out a fire and make it hard to start? Water. Good job. Water. So Elijah says, I'm going to make this even more proof that Yahweh is God, and we're going to fill mine with water like crazy. So if this happens, it has to be a miracle. And so the water ran all around the altar, and it even filled the trench with water. And then verse 36 goes on to say this. At the time for offering the evening sacrifice, the prophet Elijah approached the altar, and he said, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, today let it be known that you are God. Let it be known that you are God in Israel, and that I'm your servant, and that at your word I have done all these things. Answer me, Lord. Answer me so that this people will know that you, the Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back. In verse 38, then the Lord's fire fell and consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell face down and they said, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. Pause. So Elijah, 1 verses 450, takes this, and this is even more interesting if you think about it, because Baal was a god of, supposedly a god of what? Fertility, storms, and rain. You would think this guy could do this if he really was who he says he was. So Elijah, to make more proof, he settles the score and then adds more by all this water on it. And then he says, Lord, let it be. If it's you, come on, show these people that you're God. And it just was consumed with fire. And they fell down. And they all said that the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. But look at what it says after that. Look at the next part. It says this in verse 39, or actually 40. Then Elijah ordered them, seize the prophets of Baal. Do not let even one of them escape. So they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the Wadi Kishon. Y'all can name your son that one day if you want to. It'd be a great name, Wadi Kishon. And slaughtered them there. Some of you, I don't have time to dive into this. Some of you are like, I don't really like that story. That doesn't really seem like a very unloving God to me, that he would literally have people slaughtered. But here's what you need to understand about God, though. God doesn't just do this the first time, ever. All throughout Scripture, Old and New Testament, God never just, you make one mistake, boom, I'm slaughtering you. You're done. No grace. These people had opportunity after opportunity to repent, turn from following the false gods they were following, in this case Baal, and follow the one true God, Yahweh. And time after time, they said no. And so God, being God, proving his power, allowed Elijah, 1 verses 450, to do this. And they seized them, and they brought them down there, and they slaughtered them. To prove a point, Yahweh is God, and he is the one true God. Think about this. The three main reasons that Israel struggled with Baal worship. The culture around them, it was making it tempting to conform. It was appealing in times of drought. They would blend the worship of Baal with Yahweh, but God demanded full devotion. And this will be on your screen. This is a point. We, like Israel, must decide whether we will serve God or let idols rule our hearts. We, like Israel, must decide whether we will serve God or let idols rule our hearts or take his place. This is why God's word is incredible, because this happened several thousand years ago. But here we are in 2025, and we may not be walking around worshiping Baal, but I promise you, many of us have some idols in our life. And I think that it would be safe to say that many of us might fall in that category of the 1 to 3 at times in our lives, just like some of those Israelites do. And even today in 2025, when we're talking about fighting our battles with idols, this is one of the most important things in fighting our spiritual battles, is to understand the idols, because like Israel, we've got to choose. Are we going to serve God with our whole hearts, or are we going to give him half of us? Are we just going to give him half of us? Are we just going to give him some of us? Are we just going to give him certain parts of us, but then the other parts and the other half, we're going to migrate and we're going to blend in with the world? We got to decide, am I going to serve God with all my heart, or am I going to let these idols take his place? And the Israelites had to decide that. They had to make the decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to do these things? Am I going to follow these false gods, or am I going to follow Yahweh? And they struggled. They struggled to choose between God and Baal. And I think that we struggle to choose between God and modern idols. Think about it. What are some idols today? Success, relationships, entertainment, self, etc. Success, is success sinful? No. Success is not sinful. Are relationships sinful? No, they are a must. We must have relationships. We must have healthy relationships. Is entertainment sinful? No. Entertainment is not sinful. Are we sinful? Yeah, we are, but you get the point. These things are not bad things, but these are things that we placed above God, and they became idols. The Israelites had that problem, and we do too. The question you've got to ask is, who are you going to serve? Baal represented false security and provision, but God alone is the true provider. What are you, or who are you trusting in that is false security, that's not really going to deliver on the empty promises? See, the big idea here is that idolatry isn't just about golden statues. It's anything that takes God's place in our hearts. And we are constantly in a battle for our worship and devotion. And winning this battle means we got to identify our idols and tear them down and fully surrender to God. I'm going to read a passage in Exodus 20 that proves who God is and what God asks from us. Look at what it says in Exodus 23-6. Do not have other gods besides me. Do not have other gods besides me. Do not make it an idol for yourself, whether in the shape of anything in the heavens above, or in the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. Do not bow and worship to them, and do not serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. And that's kind of a weird concept for us to come to grips with, that God would call himself jealous. Because when we think about jealous, we think about that boyfriend or girlfriend that's like really jealous and has no trust, and you're going to Sonic at 9 o'clock at night, and they are super jealous and like, who are you hanging out with? Who are you going with? And I'm really nervous, and I'm going to check your phone next time I see you, and I'm going to go through all your history. That's what we think of when we think of jealous, is this weird, super weird, jealous ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend type thing. But that's not how God is. That's not how God operates. When we see that God is jealous, that's not what he means. What God means is that he is God, and he alone deserves all of us, all of our worship. Not a little bit, all of us. And so God knows us better than we know ourselves. So when we give ourselves halfway to something that's not going to satisfy fully, God knows what that's going to do for us, and it hurts him. He's jealous of that because he knows what's best for us. So it's not like a weird jealousy like we see as people. It's a holy jealousy that God has every right to have for his people and for humans in general. Do not have other gods beside me. Do not bow and worship to them. Do not serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. 3 things. I'm going to give you 3 points. They're going to be on your screen. And then I'm going to close out. 3 things we got to do. And you know we had to make them all the same letter at the beginning, because that's just what we do as speakers. We got to do that somehow. But these actually worked out really well, and they're true. 3 things that we got to do. 3 things that we got to do. We got to recognize, we got to remove, and we got to replace. We got to recognize, we got to remove, and we got to replace. This is, I don't want to call it a formula. This is a cycle, a spiritual cycle that you need to learn for the rest of your life. At each season of your life, you need to recognize, man, what are some idols in my life? And then after you recognize, you've got to remove. And after you remove, you've got to replace. So when it comes to recognizing our idols aren't always physical. They can be relationships, success, approval, entertainment, even ourselves. You know, what are you giving your attention, your love, and your trust to more than God? We can go ahead and throw that pad in, and we're going to take these lights down, and we're going to take this thing home. Y'all ready to take it home? Y'all ready for this? Y'all hanging in there? Y'all doing awesome? We're going to take it home right here. This is the part I want you to lock in. Don't miss this. Don't miss this, because this is the whole Application, so what? Please take this home with you. Good preaching to me leaves beyond the room. It doesn't just stay here. It leaves and it moves into your lives. It expands into your lives. So please don't miss this. When we recognize this is one of the greatest questions you can ask yourself. So students, adults, all of us, real quick, I want you to ask yourself this, okay? Ask yourself this question. And this is a painful question, quite honestly, to ask yourself. But think about this. Listen to me. Listen to me. Make sure your ears hear me. What are you giving your attention, your love, and your trust to more than God? Just think about that for just a moment. What are you giving your attention, your love, and your trust to more than God? Hopefully you can think through some things. Maybe it's relationships. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it is a thing. Maybe it's success. Maybe it's validation. Maybe it's identity stuff. Maybe I'm hoping it comes up. See, this is a really powerful question, because even as you get our age and as you become adults, you ask yourself this: what am I giving my attention, my love, and my trust to more than God? Because whatever the answer is to that question, do y'all know what that is? That's an idol. That's an idol. Even if it's your best friend, even if it's your boyfriend or girlfriend, even if it's your parents, even if it's a sport, even if it's, you name it, doesn't have to be a bad thing. But if we're giving more attention and love and trust to that than God, it's become an idol. So first thing we got to do is we got to recognize. We've got to recognize. And I wrote something down. Y'all know how I do these are what I think are fire droppers that are not in my original thing, that everything I look at here is what y'all look at on the screen. And then sometimes I'll have some more droppers. I've got 3 right here. Here's one, and this is good, all right? This is good. Y'all hang on to this. I wrote this down. Blending leads to drifting, okay? So in recognizing, we've got to understand, what are we trying to blend with that's not really Christ? So watch this. Blending leads to drifting, and drifting leads to compromise. It's good, isn't it? Blending leads to drifting, and then drifting leads to compromise. So if you think about it in your own life, you know that this is true, because you know that when you've started blending the ways of the world with Christ, which are not supposed to go together, we're supposed to be all in this way, right? When you start blending, what happens is you start drifting. Don't you? Because you know this is true. You start drifting spiritually. And then once you've made it in the drift zone spiritually, you start compromising. You start compromising who you really are as a Christ follower. You start doing things that are not truly Christ-like and aren't who you want to live like, because you've drifted to the point of now you're compromising. We've got to recognize the idols in our lives. But here's the second thing that I want to say that's on my little yellow note, fire dropper, as I move to number 2. It does no good to recognize the bad if we don't remove the bad. So it doesn't do any good if we recognize if we don't get to the place of removal. It does no good that I recognize the bad stuff if I'm unwilling to remove the bad stuff from my life. Y'all see what I'm saying here? It's one thing to recognize it. Oh man, this is a very unhealthy relationship. I don't need to be in this relationship. I recognize that, but I'm still unwilling to remove myself from it. Y'all see what I mean? That's a huge difference in just recognizing versus moving into removing. We have to not only recognize what we've got to remove. And the question I have for you is, have you ever held on to something wrong rather than removing? You ever done that? You don't have to raise your hand. Just think about this. Have you ever held on to something wrong, you know was wrong, rather than removing it? And again, it could be a person, relationship, it could be a thing, it could be whatever, it could be a mindset. Have you ever held on to something wrong that you know you needed to let go of rather than removing it, allowing it to be removed? We've got to not only recognize the idols, we've got to remove them. Tearing down the idols isn't easy. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's not easy. It requires courage. It requires action. It requires real sacrifice. My challenge to us is to identify and remove anything that's taken God's place in our life. And then I'll say the same thing about the second one, about the third one. It does no good to remove the wrong if we don't replace with the right. It's a pretty good word too. It does no good to remove the wrong if we don't replace with the right. I'll give you an example, and I'm almost done. If you think about drug addicts, a lot of time a drug addict, their number one goal is what? To get sober. That's their number one goal a lot of times, is to stop doing the drugs, to stop doing the thing that has been so harmful to their life. So a drug addict, a lot of times, I got to remove the drugs from my life. And if I can remove the drugs from my life, then I can start living the way I'm supposed to live. And that's an incredible place to start. That needs to happen, right? That needs to happen as a drug addict. But my point is, what good would it be for a drug addict to remove the drugs but not find Christ? You know what he would be then? He would just be a lost, sober, recovering drug addict. He would be sober. That's awesome. That's incredible. You're living a better lifestyle than you was in the world sense, but you're still lost because you don't have Christ. You've removed that harmful thing, but you have not replaced it with Christ, who is life. And so you're just sober now, which again is great, but that's all you are. You're a sober, lost person. You're not a sober, found person in Christ because you recognized it, you removed it, but you didn't replace it with what you needed to replace it with. We've got to recognize, we've got to remove, and we've got to replace with the right thing. And this is my final challenge to you. We're going to turn the lights, the house lights, off, screen black. I'm done preaching. It's my final challenge, and we're going to enter into a time response. And the song that I have chosen literally is called The Challenge that I'm giving you. The name of this song is literally called Make Room. It's literally the name of the song. And that's actually what I'm going to challenge you with as I close. My challenge as we move into this conversation about idols is for you to make room. To make room. Okay, when you recognize, when you remove, and once you replace, you've got to do what? You've got to make room for God in your life. So you remove the bad stuff, the stuff that was unhealthy, and you make room for God. Because up until then, all this other stuff had filled the gaps that God is supposed to fill. Do you see what I mean by that? You had all this stuff that has taken the place of God, so there's no room for God. Now, you remove it, and now the gaps are open, and God can fill it. You see what I mean with that? God can then invade the spaces that he wants to invade. But a lot of times it doesn't happen because we don't make room for God. We fill it up with all the other stuff, and then God's like over here going, I want you, I love you, I want you so bad to understand how bad you need me. But until you open up these gaps, I can't make my way in. Make room. Make room. It's my challenge to you. Make room. What space in your life, what idols do you have? What things are you loving, trusting, putting your time into more than Christ? Because whatever it is, it's an idol. And that's just misplaced worship, because Christ alone is the only one worthy of our full affection and our full worship. We're going to close this way by playing this song. And I've got another one in the bag in case we need it. We'll see what